Good afternoon, Jan.
Michael, good morning.
How have you been?
I've been fine. I've been fine. Working a little bit
Excellent.
on DWS.
hmm
What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, working a little bit too hard, but I did take a break last weekend to play board games with my friends. So
Okay.
yeah. I play tested a new game that I designed around time travel, and it was fun. We had a lot of feedback, a lot of things that we want to tweak about it. But yeah, I'll make those
Mhm.
changes and we'll try it again.
And you designed it. It's an electronic game or?
No, board game. So I basically came up with the rules. It's really, in its current form, more of a role playing game. Um,
Mhm.
so I came up with the rule set and the scenarios, and then um, the the mechanics for this one only require a long piece of paper. So I actually had 3 sheets printed out and a map and one die. So I have
Mm.
a D30. So it's a 30-sided die. It's a rhombic tricontahedron. Um,
Mm.
but the premise of the game um, is it's kind of based on a certain subgenre of time travel, where you can travel back to a point anytime after the machine has been turned on. Um,
Mm.
the uh, the best variation of this was in a movie. Um, wasn't called Sliders, was it? That wasn't it. But yeah, there's basically this movie where a couple of entrepreneurs are working on a machine that they're trying to preserve food, and so they create this
Mm.
machine that ends up doing the opposite. It makes the food grow a fungus, and then they realize, oh, it's because it's sending it back in time, and then replaying that. So, oh, okay, we invented a time machine. Let's focus on that. Pivot. And then they build their time machine. It's just big enough for one person to crawl into it. You wait around for a little bit, and then you crawl out, and you're in the past. Um,
Mm.
and so they build this machine um, in a storage facility. So you can just go to the U-Haul, open the door, crawl in, crawl out earlier. Um, so they build the machine, turn it on, and leave, because they know that there's going to be copies of them crawling out of this thing now. So they gotta get out of there so they don't cause a paradox. Um, but yeah, as the story progresses, they cause lots of paradoxes, um, and uh, and so and so I wanted to design a game that was kind of based on that mechanic, and had sort of a storyline from a different movie. This was a more of a time travel horror movie, where a guy just kind of happens upon a time machine, figures out that when he pops into it, he comes out in the past, and he creates different situations, which ultimately lead to the death of his wife, and
Mm.
so then he has to go back in time to to figure out how to prevent himself from doing that. Um, and that one's really clever because he gains just enough information during the movie that it's a little bit ambiguous. And so when he goes back in time, what he does is he sets up the conditions for a different interpretation of what he already saw.
Mm.
So all the information is consistent, but the interpretation changes. And so it's like, okay, I want that for the storyline, with this time travel mechanic. So yeah, it was set up the story, role playing. Your 3 inventors just turned on this machine an hour ago, and now you've got this problem that you need to solve. And so
Mm.
you run back to the lock-in store and you dive into the machine and roll a die in order to figure out how far back in the hour it takes you. And so each of the characters is playing on a different part of the timeline over the past hour, and then I'm controlling these non-player characters who are, some of them are part of the storyline, and so you have to change their behavior in ways that don't disagree
Mm.
with what you've already seen them do. Um, and uh, Others are just kind of in the environment, and so you can pass information to them and have them carry it forward in time to somebody else on a different part of the timeline. So it was a lot of fun.
And it has to do something with mathematics.
Oh, of course. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. That's something very special. I never heard somebody who invented board games.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that was a challenge that we set for ourselves this retreat. So during the last
mm,
retreat, we basically played one game, the
mm,
entire time. It's called Rebel Assault, multiple
mm.
scenarios, Star Wars themed game, and then we took a break for a DM to come in and run a one shot for us. So we did a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons. But then one of my friends brought a pack of single page RPGs. So it's just a role playing game. You know, the rules and the scenario on one piece of paper, front and back. Um,
Mm.
and so it's okay. That constraint uh, really helps you to design a really powerful game. Um, and so we set ourselves the challenge of creating single page RPGs to play test. Mine doesn't really fit on one page. If you read the whole scenario and everything, it's all, um, you know, it would take really small type in order to get it onto front and back of one page. Um, but yeah, so we ran a couple of these and have some have some modifications to make them to both of them.
Mhm. Great. No, I'm not in this type of. Ex- my head is now already exploding.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was the simpler game that I developed. The more
Mm,
complicated one I rejected because it was too complicated.
mm,
But that would have been based on a comic book that one of these friends loaned me about quantum mechanics.
mm.
So it's called Totally Random, and it teaches you quantum mechanics through the perspective of a comic book that plays out different scenarios with coins. So you quantumly
Okay.
entangle two coins, and then you explore the behaviors of those coins. So I was going to design an entire game based on trying to figure out what these coins do, um,
Mm.
and then solve puzzles with them. But yeah,
I
I figured that would be too complicated.
A few weeks ago I went to the attic, and I knew I still had some courses from university from long ago from on telecommunication. So I wanted to have a look at what it was. And I saw that also the courses from quantum mechanic,
Oh
I
yeah,
kept them. I kept them
excellent.
because I never understood them. But it fascinated me so much, but I never really understood it. And I said, okay, if I have time, I'm gonna have a look at it.
Yeah.
But okay, that's it's more than 30 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah,
A,
I
f-
would love to.
a few courses that I kept. That was telecom, which I understand quite well.
Uh-huh.
There was quantum mechanics, and I think something on economics because that's something I, which is really bizarre. But okay,
Yeah,
good.
that is something I would love to go back to school for. Um, yeah, yeah. If I were to to go back and get a PhD, it would be in quantum mechanics, just for fun.
Okay. And so your game is teaching, or the new game is teaching quantum mechanics.
Yeah, the game that I didn't actually develop, but yeah, it's teaching this comic book teaches Bell's theorem. Um,
Mm,
so the way that you can prove experimentally that there are no hidden variables in
mm,
entangled particles, which is an ingenious theorem. Um, and uh, and so basically you perform Bell's theorem through a series of little games in this comic book. Um, so yeah, a role playing game or role playing. It's really more of a puzzle and discovery game, based on that idea. And um, so of course with quantum entangled coins, when you flip one of them, the result of the other one is going to be determined. And so to play that out in a game, yeah, I would actually have the people flip coins, and if one of them turned out incorrect, I would just flip it over and say that's what happened. Um, and then they have to just figure out from these outcomes and from experiments that they design, what's going on with the coins.
Mm. Well, I'm first gonna focus on Jinaga.
Yeah. Jinaga is deterministic. Well, actually, I think that might be the problem with quantum mechanics, is that it appears to be deterministic in ways that make us very uncomfortable.
Mm. But it's getting very important in science now, more
Yes.
and more.
Yes, indeed.
So no, I had a very big problem, and I was looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. 2 minutes before we got online, I found it, and it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Oh, goodness.
The comparison with one equal sign instead of two.
Oh,
But the error was so complicated that I say,
yeah.
what is it? What is it in notebooks?
Hmm.
We'll come to it. Let's see. What did I do? Okay. We have a visitor.
No.
I hear
Or do we?
ding dong.
Oh.
No, no
No,
visit.
it was probably Zoom. I just started up Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it must be somebody from another timeline, an alien. Yeah. So I imported all the changes that I made to the model in Notebook into .NET. Then I realized that a stupidity which I already did in the past, I think I redid it.
Mm.
Last time you changed the task effect in DWS task.
Oh, yeah.
And it working in Notebook. So why are we making things so complicated? Just call it just call it task and not DWS task.
Yeah.
So I changed it, and then I imported it in .NET, and then I say, that looks familiar to me. and there, because we are using the task, I immediately saw the conflicts. So okay, redo that. Then to compare in Notebook the different versions. So last time I told you that WinMerge had good results.
Yes.
Another solution is before you save your notebook, you click on Clear All Outputs.
Oh. Yeah.
And so then all that output data will not be saved.
Yeah.
And your files will be a lot shorter. It's not perfect, but already a lot of rubbish, things that we cannot compare.
Right.
It's not in the files, and it makes comparison much easier.
Right. Okay. Then something else to try is to use DIB instead of IPYNB. That's the Microsoft format, and that one does not store the outputs. And the reason that I tend toward IPYNB is so that I can then look at the notebook on GitHub, and I can see all the outputs there. So that way I can just direct people to documentation, and you can read it. But yeah, that of course means that if you were to clear outputs, that wouldn't work. But with DIB, then the outputs are never stored. Maybe it merges better. I hadn't really gotten that far with it.
And then there is another option I saw. Let me share that for a while. So share. If, for example, I here create task. So here I'm in the Git. So I compare the two versions. then here, these three dots, if you click, you have show metadata differences and show output
Oh,
differences.
well,
If you click one, and if you click the other,
then you just see the useful stuff.
yeah, and now I just see the useful stuff. Discovered it by accident.
Oh, wow.
So,
I wonder why those options are even on then.
so it's these three and then these options. So that might be the best solution after all.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would keep the output in the file. Yeah, there would still be, if you ever had a merge conflict, it would still be nearly impossible to merge the two with the output in there. But yeah, that yeah, we haven't really been running into merge conflicts on these notebooks.
Luckily.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now
yeah. Mostly because only one of us has been
see.
on a notebook at a time.
But so there are different possibilities. We will see where it gets us.
Yeah.
Then, so the problem I was facing was this one. So in the scenarios, the first query I started was this one. So the purpose is to make that drop-down box of clients and yards in the new task dialog. So I adapted this one. So I start from my clients, then I go for the below clients. I have yard clients. That's the membership pattern. And the problem here was I did that.
Yeah.
and I don't know whether you see the message in it only. Yeah. In it only property or indexer. I said,
yes,
what do they mean? Until finally,
yeah.
I say, okay, so stupid.
Yeah, that is just a fundamental problem with error messages. It gets down a path, and then while it's down that path, a certain thing doesn't happen, and it tells you about that certain thing, but it never tells you why it went down that path in the first place. It was probably just one or two levels above that it said, "Oh, is this an assignment or a comparison? Let's go down a different path." Yeah, I really wish that that we could spend more time with error messages to infer, okay, what was the thing that sent us here in the first place? Tell them what was really wrong. That's hard to do, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 minutes ago it was, I found out. But now this is giving me, I just run it. The only thing I don't have yet is the client name. Because so now the client name is not stored with the yard anymore.
Yes.
So I will have to redo that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're starting from the.
I start from client here.
Okay. Yeah.
But if I would do it the other way around, it would give me a different result. I think if I start from yard, because imagine I would have defined yards where I have not assigned a client. In this case, I will not see them, I assume, or do I?
Yeah, so this is an inner join between yard and client. So yeah, this yard clients, yeah, because that's in the that's in that path that it walks. It's going to it's going to require a yard client.
Why not try it out? Why not try it out?
Yeah.
I added some data here, and I copied the data from the .NET, who have the same data there. So if I add another client here, no, that's a yard, here a client. client D, and so this one becomes D, and I make him client D.
Yeah.
And let's do the same with a yard. So for example, I add here yard. So I have B, C,
Yeah.
yard A1, B1, B2, B3, C1. That's a yard that
That moves from
is
B
called
to
with
C.
client B3
Yeah.
and yard and client C1. And so now we will have a yard which
Yeah. It wouldn't
yard,
belong to any
yard,
client. X. Yeah.
yard X, yard X, and yard X address. So that stays like this. That becomes like this,
And also there where you've got yard A1.
yeah,
Yep.
yard X,
Yeah.
X, straight. Let's change all of this.
Yeah.
It's down. That should be
Yeah.
all right. And so we don't make assignments here, because for the new client, yard X and for customer client D, they are not linked. Yeah, we don't want to see them in the facts. So I have to run this again. Okay.
And now we expect
one,
not to see either D, client D, or yard X. Neither should appear.
don't we? Why don't we see yard X?
That's because the joins include the client yard fact, and so all of those have to be satisfied simultaneously. So we are trying to get the yeah, just a little bit further. So yeah, we need a client, we need a yard, and we need a yard client. We need all three, and they need to be related in that way. And since there's no yard client related to yard X or yard client related to client D, then neither one of those shows up.
So if I want to see, for example, here, all the clients.
So then you would have to
outer join.
Yes, and the way that that an outer join appears in a Jinaga specification is that so right after the from client, where client, supplier, that's where you would do the select new. So at that point, you have a client. So that's going to be all the clients.
At which points?
Yeah, just after line 3.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where you do your projection.
Yeah. Well, wait, how can we... What we can do is just do the same thing here in another code block.
Okay, yeah, good idea. Then
Am
you
I
can see
right, or would that interfere?
If you change... Well, in fact, you don't even need to change the names. You're right. Yeah, it will redefine the names.
For the names.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah, Notebooks redefines names in ways that are not valid in regular code. But yeah, if you want to be able to see both names after the fact, then you can do it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, okay, yeah, and change that name there.
So then here.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where you do select new. And
new with the brackets.
Yeah. So you can see you've already got enough information for client names. So that line comes in exactly as is.
What did I do? X, B, yeah.
Okay. And then,
This.
then for the rest of this, you can say yards equals, and then have the, pretty much the rest of that. Everything
Then I have
from 9
here
down.
given a supplier.
You don't have to go back to given. You've already got the variables in scope that you need. So if you just start from 9 and continue all the way down through the select.
Directly like this? No?
Yep. Yep, and then also do the select new from 14. Pull that up in there too.
Okay, and this one. What did it again?
Yep.
How can I go back? Shift tab. Yeah. So like this, that should work.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, the shape of it is different. So then in your view models projection, you're going to have to change things. Because now, rather than yard names, you've got yards, and then that's a collection that has yard names. So you can flatten that.
This one is okay.
What you're doing with first or default, you're trying to pull out basically the first yard, but that also has the effect of if you've got multiple concurrent names for that yard, you'll pull out just one of those names. So basically you were combining those two operations, but now they're split apart. So you can say down on line 30. One way to do that is just yard.yards dot first or default. Which gives you the yard objects.
So then it's not yard name here.
Yeah. So give that another variable. You're inside of So you can do another let just before that. Well, you've already used the there you go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, you've already used the name yard to mean the projection. That yard 2 is the child projection, and now from there you can say let yard names equals yard 2 dot. Yard names dot first or default. Yeah. Yeah.
And it also becomes yard 2.
Yeah, and actually I think on line 31 you want to call that yard name singular.
31 one here.
Yeah, right there.
First of default. And here address,
Yeah, because you're just getting one of them.
And then here we have the same variables. So if we run this, let's save first.
So
object reference not set.
Okay, I think I understand the reason for this one. Because it's first or default. So on line 30 where you're saying yard.yards first or default, for one of those clients there are no yards.
Okay.
And so yard 2 ends up being null. And so you can use the null coalescing operator on on the other two. So yeah, question dot there.
So yard2 is null, so
Yeah. Yeah, and I never can remember if you also need to do question dot on everything that follows. We'll find out in a second here. You don't? Okay.
so here we have 4 solutions, which is less than what we had here. Here we have
Yes.
5.
Yeah, so there you've got some duplicate, so you've got client yard pairs that are showing up there. So if you expand those, you'll find that that yard A appears once, I believe, because you've got, or client A appears
Yeah.
once because you've got
So
yard A1. Client B would appear twice because you've got B1 and B2.
B1, yeah, with yard client, yeah. This is then B2, yeah. And here we have B3, C1. Here we have
Yes.
client, is this client C, and here we have client B, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So because that's the pair of client and yard you're seeing all those. The reason that you only see 4 here is that you're seeing the 4 clients.
A1. Here we see client B, yard B1. Client C. And client D.
Yep. Client D has no
client
yards.
D has nothing. But then
so you
why
get unknowns.
Why don't we see the combination?
Yeah.
Client B with the yard B3 C1.
Yeah, and that's because we've changed the shape and the structure of the specification. So it's giving us 1 record per client. That's the first thing that we asked for. But then we're doing a first or default on the yards. So that means, on line 30, we are asking for only 1 of the yards. If we wanted all of the yards, what we would need to do is project a child's view model. So
okay.
So yeah, it's so now it's really that this top collection, which we've called yards, is really a collection of client projections, not a collection of yard projections. And so for each client, we've got the client name, and so we could project that. We could project that out using first or default in order to get just 1 value for it. And then we would have another another variable that we give a name. So this is all inside of a select new, similar to what we did in the specification, where we say that yards equals from yard in yards, so that way now we really are looking at a yard projection, and we don't have to do first or default on that. We really have the yard object.
I think I still have to play a lot with these specifications.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Because it's the small details. And once you are playing with the model, you say, yeah, but why am I getting that? Why am I not getting that? Because first I tried in .NET, and then I say, I'm not gonna get out of this. I went back to Notebook, and at least there you can try it out.
Yeah. So this is precisely the area that I think I need better documentation. I need actual guidance around how to build a specification. We're kind of used to LINQ at this point, or at least people who've been using LINQ for a long time. The people who are brand new to it, I'm discovering because I'm teaching a person right now. He's brand new to LINQ, people who are brand new to it still fall into little traps that, like right here, we set up a new trap for ourselves. So you had the name yard in yards. So you gave this collection the name yards, which now puts you in the mindset of each one of these objects represents a yard, but that's not true. Because of the change that we just made, now they represent clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, we fall into these little language traps ourselves, and then yeah, it's just trial and error to to dig our way out of them. And so I've been trying to teach people, even not related to Jinaga, trying to teach them a systematic way of approaching LINQ, so that you you follow these steps. You don't get ahead of yourself, and you can reason through what it's going to produce. But yeah, if you're using Jinaga, you pretty much have to follow those steps. Yeah, those steps are pretty much the subset that Jinaga supports. So yeah, I definitely need to work on some documentation, perhaps courses around specifications.
Then on the other hand, where is it here? My other screen. So that's the .NET version.
Mm-hmm.
So I made it run. But
That's good. It's a good first step.
yeah. But do you see it now? I don't see the application.
I see Visual Studio.
Yeah. Let's play the other one. Main. Yeah, and then you're gonna see the. Yeah, I can bring it in. So he opens the windows.
Mm-hmm.
But I made it work just by commenting out everything that was giving errors, which are basically all the queries. And these queries, I was trying to make them in .NET, in notebooks.
Mm-hmm.
But so there I was stuck. Yeah.
Okay.
So I imported, I merged in the latest modification that you did last week with AutoFac.
Mm-hmm. Is that when the problem started? Did I cause an issue?
I don't think so, no, because when I merged AutoFac, it was still working perfectly. So it only causes problem in my head.
Yeah.
It should be easier with AutoFac, but for the moment, mentally it's not easier, not yet.
Yeah, that is another completely different set of skills to think about. Yeah.
You have to get used to it. It's another way of thinking. With all these factories and these functions that you add to it. Every time you have to reason through it. Why is that? Why? For me, it's not yet an obvious something.
Yeah.
But it will come.
Yeah. I did a little course on ImprovingU. So this was internal. So here we have the Entity Framework Best Practices course that I did just for a small group of improvers. And this is kind of introducing that system. So yeah, let me run through this real quick. So we started with command query responsibility segregation, CQRS. and not from the perspective that a lot of people talk about it as an architectural pattern, but instead just for organizing your code. So think about commands and think about queries. Commands will read and write data. So you issue a command, it's going to read some stuff, modify it, and then write it back. And queries, they're just going to read. So with commands, the thing that you want to come out are usually change tracking entities, so that you can make a change to them and then save changes. With queries, you never want change tracking entities. The advice that you'll see online is to use an extension method to discard the change tracking. I say go even further than that. You only want projections. That's the only thing that matters. So project exactly what you want. So how do we take a look at queries? So the overall template is first you fetch a projection. So that means you run some kind of a query to the database, and it comes back. And now this is a projection of the results that are in the database, not the not the entities. Even if you say without change tracking, no, these are exactly the values from those entities that you want. Validate the inputs. So you validate after you fetch, because the inputs to the query probably have something to do with the thing that you're fetching. Like, I want you to get me invoice 4796, and then validate inputs, and to say nope, that I got back an empty collection, so that doesn't exist. And then you transform the projection to whatever format you're looking for. And only that first part is async because that hits the database. But the template of a command is different, so that's why you just have to think about them separately in your mind. And if you separate them in code, even easier to remember. So there you fetch an entity graph, not projections, because you want the change tracking entities. You validate your inputs, then you modify the graph by adding, removing, and modifying those entities. Then you call save changes, and then because they're change tracking entities, any framework figures out what the changes should be and writes them back. And that part is async as well. So every single one of your commands and every single one of your queries should follow these two templates. So a lot of times this is really the kind of the whole point of this little course, is that you usually stumble into Entity Framework accidentally. It's like, oh, let's just code things up until they work, and then you end up with something that doesn't follow one of these templates, and you wonder why it's slow. One of the things you usually stumble into is, in order to perform a query, I'm going to fetch, and I'm going to pull some stuff back. I'm going to look at it, and then I'm going to produce another query, and I'm going to fetch some more. Maybe I'll put it into a loop, and I'll fetch multiple times. So every single one of those is an asynchronous fetch. And now if you just step back and look at the template of your function, you're saying, oh, I see lots of awaits in here. That's a problem. I should only see one await right at the top. So yeah, the template really helps out. But then this right here, this is the kind of the kicker. So this, want everyone to print out, put up on their wall. Every time you're building a LINQ specification, and this actually applies to Jinaga specifications too. Always think about it. Well, some of these things don't apply to Jinaga specifications. You can't group by in Jinaga, but you always start with thinking about the from. You were gonna pull from some related entities related to the parameters. So in a Jinaga specification, we've got our given right at the top, and then immediately, now that we've got that parameter, immediately there's a from that gets some related entities, usually successors. Now, in traditional entity framework, where is, follows the from, and that's where you put in the parameters. In Jinaga, it's reversed. So Jinaga, you've got the given. That's where you put in the parameters. And then you used where in order to relate the facts to those parameters to find successors. Or you could use the new successor syntax. Yeah, either one is basically, I know what the parameters are, I'm getting entities related to them. And then, back to traditional entity framework, you do from additional entities using navigation properties. In Jinaga, you're doing from additional entities by walking the graph using predecessor and successor relationships. In either case, the result is the same. This from, where, from combination gives you the set of results that you expect. So you should be able to say to yourself, I want one result per what? So in the first query that we started with, the first specification, we want one result per yard client. So so there was from where that joined client and yard, and they were all joined together on that one level. And so that means you're going to get one object out of the out of that specification at that top level for every combination of those three things that satisfy those conditions. Since yard client is the successor of those two, and those are two singular predecessors, that means that they're not going to multiply. The client is not going to multiply the yard client, and the yard is not going to multiply the yard client, because for a given yard client, there's just one client, there's just one yard. So by joining those three things together, you get one result per yard client. Does that make sense? That was a lot of words in the air.
No, that more or less. So it's basically we start the first from that keyword that gives the, how to say, the number of items we have.
Yeah. That
we need
collection.
we need to fulfill all the relations.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the key. All of those where clauses need to be simultaneously satisfied.
Yeah, I think that's the most important one that I heard today. That I forgot.
Yeah. So so that should be what you're reasoning through while you're writing LINQ, instead of let me try something until I get some results that look right. And so when we went from joining client, yard client, and yard, that little V shape, we went from that to just client. So give me all the clients that are related to the parameters. It started at the supplier. Then you expect one result, not per yard client, but one result per client.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you know how many results you're expecting to get, and what each one is expected to be scoped to. And that's where you can bring in, I'll skip over the group by right now. That's where you can bring in the select. Yeah, so you're selecting in the case of a query, a projection. So that's why we always do a select new, and then we say I want to define these properties. And so the properties could just use fields of the facts that we've identified in these froms up here. And those are not going to change the number of results that we get, because we've already set in for each result, we're getting a tuple of everything that satisfies all those conditions simultaneously. So so now for each one, what are the properties? And you just pull fields or hashes off of off of those facts. Or in the case of Entity Framework, you're pulling values straight out of those entities. But then the select can also, as we saw with that second example, contain another specification. So you can start right back at the top with from. And now your parameters are the ones that you defined one level up. All of those things that were inside of from. So then it's just recursive. So that's what I basically walked through over the course of 2 1-hour sessions, building some LINQ specifications using a real example. I pulled an example. Somebody had very helpfully put up a source code repository of here's how you can use LINQ with a local database. So it was. I think it was SQLite. Yeah. This was a SQLite database. So it was just, right there on your hard drive. In fact, she even checked in the SQLite database just to make it really easy to pull and run this project. But I noticed that she used some patterns that kind of got her to a point where she was doing multiple asyncs in a query. That she was fetching entities and just explicitly saying, turn off the change tracking. For the commands, there were multiple fetches, and in order to figure out different steps along the way for validation, and then finally, sometimes even multiple saves. So I save changes so that I get an ID so that I could use it in another foreign key and save some more changes. So basically, we identified all those different patterns, looked at the SQL that was generated, and said why those patterns are less than ideal, and then went to these patterns here, reasoned through the specifications like this, and then not only is it easier to think through the problem, and you've got a systematic approach, but also you end up with something that is probably a lot more performant. You end up with better SQL at the end. But yeah, you do have to think about it differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was the result of kind of a discussion at the end. So, why are we doing this in the first place? Oh, yeah. We probably should have started with this, but...
Mm-hmm. Have to use it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, basically, I think it would be worthwhile to put that guidance someplace, in terms of some articles and some videos for regular Entity Framework developers. I've already got my name associated with some Entity Framework courses on Pluralsight, so kind of build on that. Say, okay, here's how to really think through Entity Framework specifications. In fact, you know what? I might even talk to, I'm going to talk to my friends at Pluralsight and see if this fits within the catalog. Maybe we can make this an official thing. Yeah, I think that would be good. But then, in addition to that, now, okay, what does that look like in Jinaga? So, okay, Jinaga, reset your brain. Don't think about this the way that you are used to thinking about a new framework. Even if you've taken that course, there's still some modifications we need to make. And now this is the way to think about specifications.
That would be helpful, I think.
Okay, yeah, another project that I have set myself up for.
Yeah, but by doing it more and more, and I think now we are really started with the queries, with the model, and building on it.
Mm-hmm.
It goes slowly, but every time we go a little bit further, and I think the more and more I do it, the faster and faster it should go.
Yeah. Yeah, the conversations we've been having about the model over the past few weeks have just been like, I've never been able to talk to somebody else like this. So, yeah, it's working.
Mhm. No, but it's so new and it's so different from the normal stuff, but it's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it takes some time to to get used to it.
Yeah, that is true. I guess that's just going to be the reality I have to deal with.
Yeah, but the good thing is that people
Mm-hmm.
with more background in all these things than me, they will go faster. Because that's what I told you last time. The problem is
Mm-hmm.
the slowness is a little bit because of Jinaga, but it's a lot because of the lack of background
Mm.
in different topics.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that that's true. I have observed, or maybe it's just on a spectrum. So, the more people have experience with distributed systems, maybe there's a point at which it's like, okay, I am fully ready to get this information. But you go past that point, and now you're already really set in your ways. So yeah, if you talk to an expert online about distributed systems and you try to tell them this stuff, they're like, no, because I already know how to do it this way. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I've already been very successful teaching people how to use mass transit and queues and Kafka um, and think about when this message arrives here, I do this and I transition into that state. I do publish that
Yeah, but
event out the other side. It's like,
yeah, but that's normal because there you have people who earn their living
yeah,
with technology which is completely different.
yeah,
So
yeah. And it's also really frustrating. I have taught that stuff too. I continue to teach that stuff. It's like, okay, yeah,
mm,
this is how most people build distributed systems. I know what the problems are with it, but
mm,
you're not there yet. And mass transit is the tool that you have, so let's learn how to use it.
yeah. Look, eventually, with enough samples, with enough
Mm-hmm.
explanation around it, people will pick it up.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
And if we saw a few sessions ago, there was this man who was already using not
Yes,
Jinaga, but the principles of it.
yes.
That means people who understand how it works, who are really interested.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep, and having a conversation which is pushing uphill in exactly that same way. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, the architects on this team are already doing things that way. Hey, let's
yeah,
think about it a different way. That doesn't make any sense. I'll still build my state
mhm.
machines over here.
Yeah. I was uh, on 2 days ago. Somebody was talking to me about Vara, which is a protocol which is used to transmit data over radio
Hmm.
links. So it's like a normal modem,
Yeah.
but optimized for radio communication.
Yeah. Is that one of those long range and so very very low bandwidth protocols?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which even below the noise level can detect signals and reestablish the messages.
That is awesome.
So it's very powerful modulation techniques.
That's Claude
So I
Shannon.
was reading, I was reading a little bit on that system,
Hmm.
but it's completely closed source, unfortunately. But one of the things was guaranteed delivery. I say, oh,
Uh-huh.
there we are again.
Yep.
um, but so wherever you go, you always get to the same thing,
Yeah.
from an ATM to modems to everything.
Yeah.
Guaranteed delivery. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Let me tell you a story of two generals.
Mm. Yeah. But unfortunately, the software is proprietary. So
Hmm.
for the moment, I hope that because it's one person who's writing it, I
Ah, yeah.
hope that he will open it up before one day it disappears.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that could be an issue. Yeah. Which reminds me, I do need to make a little bit of forward motion on that sustainability of the Jinaga project. I think we might have talked about it, um, but yeah, I was thinking through, what do I need to put in place in order to make sure that the Jinaga project um, outlives me and produces its own income, its own revenue. Uh, so uh, so yeah, I've got some thoughts there.
combination with a time machine.
Oh yeah, that could definitely help. Yeah, but if
Yeah.
I'm going to invent a time machine, I already would have, right?
Mm.
Because I would, yeah.
Yeah.
Paradoxes.
No, but um, I think once the moment is there and it
Hmm.
get used, it is open source.
Hmm.
So once you have enough interest, project should go automatically.
Yeah.
Um, but before you have that number of people um, who are really
Hmm.
into it and who are capable to continue. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been looking at the trajectory of other open source projects, and yeah,
mm,
Jinaga is still really early on that trajectory, um, but yeah, at some point it does reach that critical mass, and people start to depend upon it. But you're still not sustainable at that point. Um, so there's another part of the curve later that
mm,
really it now depends upon the maintainer, and how do you get more maintainers onto the project? How do you incentivize the maintainer to continue working on the project?
mm.
Um, and and so, ironically, the solution that I've found that seems to work best there um, is that parts of it should not be open source, or at least that's the direction that I'm exploring. So, in particular, Factual
Mm.
Studio. As I
Mm.
start building Factual Studio, I'm going to at least start it in private.
And what is the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, the reasoning is that uh, that gives you one part of the ecosystem that is a product, and with a product, now you can put incentives around it in the form of charging uh, for its use, um, and pick and choose who you want to charge, um, and uh, and then those incentives then uh, yeah,
Mm.
allow you so many different options for how you can make the project sustainable. So it could continue to be one maintainer, but now deriving an income from it, and then that maintainer doesn't have to go to work. It could be, hey, here's a product, product company, buy the product and start selling it, and now the
Mm.
company makes money and therefore invests in maintaining the project. Um, so some of the open source projects that are making that transition right now, one of them uh, did it really badly, and then two of them are still making plans, uh, but seem to be doing it pretty
Mm.
well. So yeah, there's fluent assertions just bungled the whole going commercial. Um, and then shortly thereafter, both Mass Transit and Mediator announced plans for going commercial, and they did it in a much more community-friendly way and explained why they're doing this, and came up with or at least in Mass Transit, came up with a model that really fits. So Mass Transit, used by enterprises, including my current client, to build software that runs the entire business. So of course, they are interested in seeing it continue, and they are more than willing to pay for it to continue. And so a license model that allows those businesses to get what they need makes a lot of sense. Mediator, Jimmy Bogart hasn't really announced yet what the terms and what the cost is going to be, but basically it's not going to be fluent assertions. Fluent assertions, it was just a per developer subscription fee, and thank you, goodbye. Yeah, and it was done without an actual announcement, just a pull request. Yeah, it was, yeah. And then people were asking, why is the license change here for version 8? Why? Oh, that's because now Exceed is selling the product.
No, but indeed, like you say, companies, bigger companies, they are not interested in a product if there is no support for it.
Right, exactly.
So you need a company behind it, or people, professionals who will be there always,
Yeah.
can support the product, who can adapt the product, even if the product itself is open source.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So to that end, developing Factual Studio open source would not actually be against it. It wouldn't prevent me from putting a license model on it. But yeah, as I'm looking at the specifically what Jinaga does, the parts that you ship with your code, I want those to be completely open source, because you're shipping those. You need the ability to take a look at what it's doing, to modify it if necessary, and ship a modified version with your code. Yeah, absolutely. The tools that you don't ship, like Factual Studio, you don't need that as much. So while it would still be nice for Factual Studio to be open source, that does now keep open somebody forking Factual Studio and creating a competing tool. So I'm thinking about the future options. So sell it to a company. What makes it more valuable to that company is to have a bit of a moat around the product. So by not making Factual Studio open source, I'm not taking too much away from my customers, but I am providing more value to whoever might take this over.
And it's a balance.
Yeah.
Between something that you make open source, you can have help and innovation from other people, and it also builds trust. But yeah, it has no value because it's from everybody.
Yeah.
But I think in one way or the other, there has to be either company, but it would be multiple companies which have speciality, which have competences to support and to guide people using Jinaga. It's a little bit like Linux. Linux is open source.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of companies which can help you with Linux.
Yeah, that is true.
Which can install the machines for you, which can adapt. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So ultimately, ultimately, it might make sense to take Factual Studio open source.
That I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either. That's the whole point.
No, think very well before you make it open source, because once you make it open source, it's difficult to go back.
Yeah. Yep. That's the rug pull that people experienced with fluent assertions is we just changed the license. So now, version 7 is still got an open source license. Version 8 does not have an open source license. So you created a social contract with your community and built up this great community around this open source project, and then all of a sudden you yank. Now you change the license. Going the other direction, Microsoft actually just did this at Build. It's like, okay, we're taking Visual Studio Code and we're making it open source. So it's like, oh, it wasn't before? Yeah, I didn't really notice. But yeah, now it's not. Yeah, there were some other things that they announced just to Build that, and this is going open source. So yeah, going in that direction makes people happy. So I can set up whoever takes over this project for that moment of happiness, if they choose to go down that road.
But one possibility would like you say with Factual Studio, you can work without it.
Yes.
But you can be more efficient if you have it.
Mm-hmm.
And there if you want to be more efficient and save time, well, you buy a license.
Yeah.
If you don't care about your time, you do it manually or with Notebook. It works as well as the other one, but you need more time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do plan on having a license model that doesn't require cost for somebody who's using Factual Studio to learn Jinaga or to work on a small project. I don't know what the details are going to be around that, but I do want it to be fully featured, available for everybody at a certain level. But then once you're making money on a Jinaga project, then pay for this tool, and then it makes sense for that to be a per developer fee because it's the developer that's using it, as opposed to things like fluent assertions. That's the source code. So even the developers who aren't writing tests, that source code is still in your repository. You still have to pay for that developer to use it. So, still have to work on the details around that. But yeah, I think that's the direction that I want to go for sustainability.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if you could
wow.
have a network, people around you, but you still have to be there yourself to to think and to develop.
True.
And
yes, true. Yeah, yes, that is true.
Just to find somebody like you who can come up with all this mathematics based software.
Yeah. I do think that once I get a few more people, putting the blinders on their brains and say, no, just think about it this way. It's the constraints that give you the power. And talking to really smart people, they're just like all over the place because I know all of these things. And say, no, put those constraints. Ignore that thing that you know. Just do this.
Hey, but what about improving?
Yeah, that is one of the possible paths.
Well, you have the best developers around you, and they already more or less into the tool. So
Yep. I keep introducing Jinaga to different folks within Improving. Sometimes it's an ImprovingU. So before this, when I just did, I did a multi-session ImprovingU on Jinaga, just using notebooks and modeling. And so I'll continue to do that. Plus things with the Code Launch app, getting people to come in and work on the Code Launch app. And that's a fully fledged end-to-end implementation of a Jinaga application. And so trying all these avenues to get more people in, and inevitably I get somebody in who's just really smart and really knows distributed systems, and then I show them this, and then they immediately think about a solution that they already know. For example, I brought in a front-end developer to work on the Code Launch application. So I said, okay, I used AI to generate this this user experience right here. It's not what we want. Here's the Figma for the user experience we really want, but it works. So just work on the React from here forward, and don't peek behind the curtain. So, well, what's behind the curtain? Okay, let's go through. Yeah, I had to teach him the whole thing because he's curious and he wants to know.
Mhm.
And then it's like, okay, now I need to set up my developer environment and actually get some work done. And so the developer setup that I had at that point was Docker compose up and then configure all of the things and set up Fusion auth, and you've got your replicator, and now you've got a tenant in there, you've got a service principal running over here. It's like, okay, now it's all working, and now you can start developing. And he's like, well, I'm just working on the front end. Can we, and this is where he brought in his prior knowledge, can we create a mock replicator that responds to the API the same way that the real one does, but I can just run that mock replicator. And if you were building an API, that's exactly what you would want to do. But that is absolutely not what you want to do in a Jinaga application. A real replicator is a mock replicator. You just stand one up with no security policies, and there you go. It will do everything that you want it to do. But even that's not what you want to do for just local development. You just want to shove facts into your Jinaga client, and then when you run your specifications, they come out. So just switch it to in memory with no upstream URL, and then you get exactly what you want. But yeah, if I'd left him to his own devices and he said, oh, I'm running into this problem, let me just see if I solve it, he would solve it using what he's familiar with, those patterns, and wouldn't recognize this is the way you do it in Jinaga.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So next week.
Step by step.
Yeah, step by step.
You will get there step by step. Next week you will be there?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and hopefully, I think next week I should be able to give a full end-to-end demo of the Code Launch application.
Okay.
Yeah, it is just about ready. In fact, it is up at Linode, so there is a URL that you can use to get to it. And so I am currently in the process of adding more administrators so that other people can try it out. It's not feature complete yet, but it will be by next week. And based on really then it's just a matter of putting the right user interface on it, the one that we want, not the one that it currently has. But yeah, I can show it to you with the current user interface, no problem.
Looking forward to that. Okay, Michael, see you next week then.
Indeed. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jan.